Some of the greatest cities ever built rose where no one could possibly survive. This is the story of 30 ancient civilizations that defied geography itself. You are about to discover how humanity turned impossible landscapes into thriving empires, from mountaintop citadels to desert metropoles. We will uncover the secrets of societies that carved their homes from cliffs, farmed in the clouds, and mastered the open ocean. How did the Inca build a road network across the treacherous Andes? What allowed a kingdom to flourish in the heart of the Sahara? By the end of this journey, you will see the map of the ancient world in a completely new light. What forgotten civilization do you believe achieved the most impossible feat? High on a razor-backed mountain ridge, a city of stone appears to grow directly from the rock. This is Machu Picchu, the most famous testament to a people who saw not barriers in the Andes but possibilities. The Inca Empire did not merely exist in the mountains, it became one with them, mastering a geography so extreme it would be daunting even with modern technology. Their domain stretched for thousands of miles, a colossal empire connected by a web of roads that snaked across some of the most treacherous terrain on Earth. How do you feed millions of people when your farmland is carved into near vertical slopes? The Inca answered with engineering genius, cutting vast terraces into the mountainsides. These were not simple steps, they were complex agricultural systems with deep gravel layers for drainage and precisely calculated orientations to capture the sun's warmth, creating microclimates for growing potatoes, maize, and quinoa at altitudes where the air grows thin. But their true masterpiece was the road network. Imagine a highway system built across jagged peaks and deep ravines without the wheel or iron tools. The Quhapak Nyan, or Royal Road, was a marvel of logistics. Engineers suspended rope bridges over roaring rivers, carved stairways directly into cliff faces, and built retaining walls that have withstood centuries of earthquakes. Runners known as chasquis used these roads as a swift communication system, relaying messages across the empire at a speed that would not be surpassed for centuries. They did not conquer their environment, they conversed with it, shaping the very bones of the continent to their will. What does it take to build a civilization where the earth itself seems to resist you? The same spirit of defiance echoed along another impossible river, far from the mountain peaks. While the Inca mastered vertical landscapes, the ancient Egyptians faced a horizontal one, a vast and lifeless sea of sand. Their civilization was a thin, green thread of life woven along the Nile, a ribbon of fertility in the heart of the Sahara. Every year, like a reliable heartbeat, the river would flood, soaking the parched land with water and depositing a fresh layer of rich black silt. This was not a disaster to be feared, but a gift to be harnessed. The Egyptians became masters of this cycle, building a society that would endure for 3,000 years. How do you turn a desert into a breadbasket? The answer was written in the river's annual rise and fall. They constructed a vast network of canals and basins to trap the floodwaters, creating a managed irrigation system that turned the desert's edge into some of the most productive farmland the ancient world had ever known. This agricultural surplus was the foundation of everything, freeing people to become artists, scribes, priests, and engineers. And what they built with that collective effort still defies belief. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as a monument to their staggering organizational skill. It is a structure composed of over 2 million stone blocks, each weighing several tons, quarried, transported, and set into place with a precision that remains a subject of awe and debate. They achieved this without modern machinery, without the wheel for heavy transport, relying on human ingenuity, river barges, and an intimate understanding of mathematics and physics. They looked at a landscape defined by scarcity and saw boundless opportunity, proving that a civilization's greatness is not measured by the resources it has, but by what it can create with the resources it is given. Deep within the sweltering Cambodian jungle, the Khmer Empire performed a different kind of miracle. they did not just clear the land, they redesigned it. While the Egyptians mastered a single, predictable river, the Khmer faced a chaotic, seasonal deluge. Their home was a landscape of extremes, swinging from months of monsoon downpours that drowned the earth to a long, parching dry season that baked it solid. To survive here was one thing, but to build the largest pre-industrial city in the world, Angkor, was something else entirely. Their secret was not written in stone at first, but in water. The true genius of the Khmer was hidden beneath the jungle floor, a sprawling network of canals, reservoirs, and intricate basins that formed one of the most advanced water management systems of the ancient world. At its heart were the barrays, immense artificial reservoirs so vast they resembled inland seas. These massive structures captured the torrential monsoon rains, storing enough water to sustain a population of perhaps 1 million people through the dry months. Canals channeled this life-giving water to fields, transforming a flood-prone wilderness into a region capable of yielding 3 or even 4 crops of rice per year. This agricultural abundance fueled an empire, and with that power they turned their vision to the gods. From this mastered landscape rose Angkor Wat, a temple complex so grand it mimics the cosmos in stone. Its soaring towers represent the sacred Mount Meru, the center of the Hindu universe, while its massive moat symbolizes the world-encircling ocean. The entire structure is a masterpiece of alignment and proportion, designed to capture the sun's rays at the equinox in a breathtaking display of celestial harmony. They carved intricate bas-reliefs stretching for miles, depicting epic myths and celestial dancers, all from sandstone floated down canals they themselves had built. The Khmer did not merely build a temple in the jungle, they built a universe, proving that the greatest civilizations are those that learn to dance with the rhythms of their world, no matter how challenging they may be. Far from the open rivers and managed waters of other empires, the Maya built a world of stone and intellect in a place that seemed to offer nothing but obstruction. Their heartland was the relentless rainforest of Mesoamerica, a dense green fortress where survival was a daily battle against nature. This was not a landscape of clear rivers and fertile plains, but a tangled wilderness where every resource, from building stone to fertile soil, had to be fought for or ingeniously created. Yet here they raised cities like Tikal, where pyramids pierced the jungle canopy and palaces echoed with the voices of astronomers and scribes. How do you feed the populations of vast cities when the jungle soil is thin and exhausted within a few seasons? The Maya answer was hidden beneath the surface. They transformed the swampy lowlands into a network of productive farmland through raised fields and complex terracing. They built canals to drain excess water and used the rich mud to fertilize artificial gardens that floated on the water's surface. This was agriculture as high art, a sustainable system that supported urban centers for centuries. In these cities, they pursued knowledge with a ferocious intensity, entirely cut off from the ideas of Europe or Asia. They developed the most sophisticated writing system in the Americas, a complex script of hundreds of glyphs that could record history, poetry, and royal lineage. Their priests gazed at the night sky, tracking the movements of planets with a precision that allowed them to create a calendar more accurate than any in use in Europe at the time. They calculated the solar year down to the minute and understood the complex cycles of Venus. Their towering pyramids were not just tombs or temples, they were cosmic gateways aligned to the solstices and equinoxes, physical representations of their belief that the celestial and earthly realms were woven together. In the heart of a seemingly impossible environment, the Maya proved that a civilization's true strength lies not in the ease of its surroundings, but in the boundless potential of the human mind. While the Maya unlocked the secrets of the rainforest, another civilization performed a similar miracle of isolation and ambition high upon a mountain fortress. The Khmer Empire rose on the hard-to-reach Ethiopian highlands, a plateau surrounded by harsh deserts and jagged mountains that should have condemned it to obscurity. Instead, this kingdom turned its rugged geography into a strategic advantage, becoming a crossroads of the ancient world and one of the four great powers of its time, alongside Rome, Persia, and China. How does a landlocked kingdom become a naval and trading superpower? Axum controlled the Red Sea with access to the Nile trade routes and the Indian Ocean beyond. Their port of Adulis buzzed with merchants from India, Egypt, and the Mediterranean, exchanging ivory, gold, exotic animals, and fragrant frankincense for manufactured goods and spices. This immense wealth was so tangible that the Axumites minted their own currency, beautiful gold, silver, and copper coins that carried the faces of their kings and proclaimed their power across 3 continents. This was not a remote outpost, it was a cosmopolitan center that stamped its own money, a statement of economic sovereignty rare in the ancient world. But their grandest statements were carved from solid stone. In their capital city, they erected colossal obelisks, single pieces of granite hauled from quarries miles away and raised to staggering heights. The tallest of these royal stelae, now fallen, would have stood over 100 feet tall, a skyscraper of the ancient world carved with intricate false doors and windows, representing a monumental multi-story building. The engineering required to quarry, transport, and erect these stone giants on a mountainous plateau without modern machinery is a testament to a sophisticated and powerful society. They built in stone to declare their permanence, creating a skyline of obelisks that dominated the highlands, a bold announcement of a civilization that refused to be limited by its remote location. In Axum, the mountains were not a prison but a pedestal. The desert is a place of stark absolutes, a landscape defined by what is missing. Yet in this world of scorching sun and relentless thirst, the Nabateans performed an act of pure alchemy. They did not find a city in the desert of Jordan, they conjured one from the very rock itself, carving their capital, Petra, into the face of towering rose-red sandstone cliffs. To approach this city is to walk through a narrow, winding fissure in the earth, a sick where the cliffs press in so high they almost block out the sky. At the end of this natural corridor, the rock face suddenly opens to reveal the treasury, a magnificent facade intricately carved directly from the living stone, glowing with a breathtaking, fiery hue. This was more than a tomb or a temple, it was a declaration. But the true wonder of Petra is not what you see carved on the surface, but what lies hidden beneath it. How do you sustain a bustling metropolis of tens of thousands in one of the driest regions on the planet? Water was their currency, and they were masters of its economy. The Nabateans engineered the entire landscape into a massive water collection system. They paved hillsides with stone channels to capture every precious drop of sporadic rainfall. They carved gutters directly into the cliffs lining the sick, channeling water into a complex network of ceramic pipes and underground cisterns that fed the city. Their dams and reservoirs were so effective that they could control flash floods, turning destructive torrents into a managed resource. This mastery of hydraulics allowed Petra to bloom. Lush gardens and productive farms thrived in the heart of the desert, supporting a population that transformed the city into a pivotal hub on the incense trade routes. Wealth from frankincense and myrrh flowed through its gates, financing the creation of tombs, temples, and theaters, all hewn from the rock with astonishing precision. The Nabateans did not fight their arid environment, they listened to it, learning its secret rhythms and coaxing life from stone and scarcity. They proved that in the right hands, even a desert can become a place of immense abundance. Out in the middle of the wine-dark sea, another civilization embraced a different kind of isolation. The Minoans of ancient Crete built their world on an island suspended between continents, a land blessed with fertile soil but cursed by the very earth beneath it. Crete sits astride massive geological fault lines, a place regularly shaken by earthquakes and threatened by the tsunamis they could spawn. Yet here, the Minoans did not huddle in fear. They flourished, creating Europe's first advanced civilization in sprawling, open palaces that seemed to defy all logic. Their greatest architectural marvel, the Palace of Knossos, was a labyrinthine complex of over 1,000 rooms with advanced drainage systems, light wells, and vibrant frescoes depicting leaping dolphins and graceful athletes. But its most striking feature was what it lacked. There were no towering defensive walls, no imposing fortifications. In an age of conquest and raiding, the Minoans built with a breathtaking confidence that their security came not from stone ramparts but from the sea itself. Theirs was a thalassocracy, an empire of the waves. How does a civilization achieve such a sense of invulnerability? The answer was their mastery of shipbuilding and navigation. Their sleek, oared vessels ruled the eastern Mediterranean, creating a trade network that stretched from the coasts of Anatolia to the shores of Egypt. They transported olive oil, wine, exquisite pottery, and precious saffron, weaving a web of economic and cultural influence so strong it made their island home a hub of the ancient world. This maritime dominance provided a security that walls never could. They were so attuned to their environment that they even engineered their palaces to survive the tremors. They used flexible wooden columns and clever construction techniques that could absorb seismic shocks, a form of ancient anti-earthquake engineering. Their vibrant art, filled with scenes of nature and ritual, reveals a people not paralyzed by the threats around them, but deeply engaged with the joy and beauty of life. The Minoans present a powerful paradox, a society that prospered on shaky ground by placing its ultimate trust in the open water. From the open trust of the Minoans, we turn to a civilization that mastered the sea with a very different kind of ambition. The Carthaginians did not just navigate the Mediterranean, they sought to command it, building a commercial empire so vast it became the only true rival to the rising power of Rome. Their story begins with the Phoenicians, a people from the coast of modern-day Lebanon, who were the ancient world's greatest explorers and merchants. They fanned out across the sea, establishing trading posts from Spain to Sicily, but their greatest colony was Carthage, founded on the North African coast. Legend says it began with a piece of land no larger than a bull's hide, cleverly cut into a thin strip that encircled a strategic hill. From this seemingly modest beginning, they built a metropolis that would dominate the Western Mediterranean for centuries. How does a single city without a vast hinterland of fertile farms become a superpower? The Carthaginian answer was written not in the soil but in the waves. Their wealth was built on trade, and to protect that wealth, they became unparalleled naval architects and commanders. Their ships were the apex of ancient technology, from the sturdy, round-hulled merchant vessels that carried silver, tin, and exotic goods, to the swift, deadly quinquimes, warships powered by multiple banks of oars that could outmaneuver and ram any rival fleet. The heart of their maritime power was their legendary harbor, a masterpiece of military engineering. From the outside, it appeared to be a simple, circular commercial port. But hidden behind a high wall was a second, inner, ring-shaped harbor dedicated solely to the Navy, with island at its center housing the Admiral's headquarters. This secret base could house and service over 200 warships at once, a concentration of naval force the world had never seen. It was a statement of pure maritime dominance, a fortified sanctuary for the fleet that protected their economic lifeblood. This commercial empire, however, would eventually meet its match. The same drive for control that built their network of trade brought them into direct and brutal conflict with another rising power, a republic that was mastering the land just as fiercely as the Carthaginians had mastered the sea. The stage was set for a clash of titans, a series of wars that would test the limits of both civilizations and decide the fate of the ancient world. Far from the open sea, in the sweltering, waterlogged jungles of the Mexican Gulf Coast, a different kind of mystery was taking shape. The Olmecs, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, built their world in a land of swamps and rivers, a place so challenging it seems to resist permanent settlement. Yet here they laid the foundational blueprint for all the great civilizations that would follow, from the Maya to the Aztec. Their most enduring and baffling legacy is written in stone in the form of colossal heads. These massive sculptures, each carved from a single block of solid basalt, stand up to 10 feet tall and weigh as much as 20 tons. They depict helmeted figures with stern, unique faces, each one an individual portrait of a powerful ruler. The mystery is not just their creation, but their journey. The basalt for these giants came from the Tuxtla Mountains, quarried from volcanic peaks dozens of miles away from their final resting places like San Lorenzo and La Venta. How do you move a 20-ton block of stone through dense, trackless jungle and across treacherous rivers without the wheel, without metal tools, and without domesticated animals for heavy labor? The Olmecs left no written records to explain their methods, but the likely answer is a breathtaking demonstration of coordinated human effort and simple physics. They probably transported the immense stones on massive rafts during the rainy season, floating them down rivers, and then used log rollers and miles of rope to haul them overland. This would have required the labor of hundreds, if not thousands, of people working in perfect unison for weeks or months, a staggering organizational feat for a society at the dawn of urban life. But the colossal heads are only the most visible sign of their genius. In the heart of the swamp, they built great ceremonial centers with earthen pyramids and vast plazas, shaping the very landscape to their spiritual vision. They developed a complex calendar, a ritual ball game that would spread throughout the region, and perhaps even the earliest forms of writing in the Americas. They were the pioneers, the first in a long line of cultures that would learn to draw order from the chaos of the Mesoamerican jungle. The Olmecs present us with a profound question. How does a culture invent civilization itself, creating its core traditions from nothing but the raw materials of a difficult land and the limitless potential of the human mind? While the Olmecs carved order from the jungle, another civilization was performing a miracle of urban planning on the other side of the world. The Harappan people of the Indus Valley built cities of such stunning logic and foresight that they feel modern in their sensibilities. Their domain stretched across the vast floodplains of the Indus River, a landscape of incredible fertility but also of immense danger, subject to the violent, unpredictable moods of the river. In the face of this chaos, they did not simply build towns, they engineered masterpieces of civic design. Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were their greatest achievements, metropolises laid out on a precise grid pattern with streets running north-south and east-west in perfect alignment. This was not haphazard growth, it was a blueprint for an entire society, conceived and executed with a level of centralized planning that would not be seen again for thousands of years. How do you maintain public health and order in a densely populated city over 4,000 years ago? The Harappan answer was hidden beneath the streets. They constructed the world's first known integrated sanitation system. Almost every house had its own bathing area and a toilet that connected to a city-wide network of covered drains running beneath the main avenues. These drains were equipped with inspection holes for maintenance, channeling waste away from the living spaces and ensuring a standard of cleanliness that was simply unimaginable in contemporary Mesopotamia or Egypt. They built great communal baths like the famous Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro, which may have served ritual purification purposes, showcasing a society deeply concerned with both physical and spiritual hygiene. Their genius extended to water access, with numerous wells providing clean water to neighborhoods, and sophisticated systems of channels to manage the annual floodwaters that threatened their carefully ordered world. Yet for all their incredible advancements, the Harappans remain one of history's most profound enigmas. We have found no grand palaces, no colossal statues of warrior kings, no elaborate royal tombs filled with treasure. Their cities show a remarkable sense of social equality, with houses being largely similar in size and comfort. Their writing, preserved on thousands of small seals, has never been deciphered, keeping their language, their thoughts, and the names of their rulers a complete mystery. They created a stable, peaceful, and technologically brilliant civilization that thrived for a millennium. And then, just as mysteriously, they faded away, their meticulously planned cities slowly reclaimed by the silt of the river they had so brilliantly mastered. What does it mean to build a perfect city, only to leave behind no memory of the people who dreamed it into being? High on the sun-baked cliffs of the American Southwest, entire cities hang suspended between the earth and the sky. These are the cliff dwellings of the ancestral Pueblones, a people we often call the Anasazi, who transformed sheer canyon walls into bustling, multi-story communities. Their world was one of stark contrasts, a high desert of scorching summer heat, frigid winters, and unpredictable rainfall. In this land of immense rock and minimal water, they did not simply survive, they engineered a way to thrive for centuries. How do you build a stable society where every drop of water is precious? Their answer was etched into the very geology of their home. They became masters of dry land farming, cultivating maize, beans, and squash in the sandy canyon bottoms. But their true agricultural genius lay in their ability to capture every possible bit of moisture. They built intricate grids of check dams and diversion channels to funnel sporadic runoff from summer thunderstorms directly to their fields. They even positioned their gardens to take advantage of subtle temperature variations, planting in areas where melting snow would linger longest in the spring. This was farming by observation and precision, a deep, generational understanding of a fragile environment. Their architectural choices were just as deliberate. Moving from the open mesas to the sheltered alcoves high in the cliffs was not an act of fear, but one of sophisticated urban planning. These cliff dwellings, like the breathtaking Cliff Palace at Mesa Verde, were not primitive caves. They were complex architectural feats with towers rising several stories, round ceremonial rooms called kivas dug deep into the ground, and hundreds of rooms interconnected by a labyrinth of ladders and tunnels. Building here provided natural insulation from the desert's temperature extremes and a defensible position, but it also represented a profound communal effort. They had to haul timber, mortar, and sandstone blocks up precarious cliff faces, constructing their world one handful of material at a time. The result was a society deeply integrated with its landscape, a civilization that found security and sustainability not by conquering the desert, but by learning to live within its exacting rhythms. South of the mighty Egyptian Empire, a different power was rising from the sands. The Kingdom of Kush in Nubia was not merely a neighbor to Egypt, but a rival that would ultimately become its conqueror. For centuries, the Egyptians had viewed this southern land as a source of gold, ivory, and enslaved people, yet they failed to see the formidable civilization taking root there. The Kushites did not just resist Egyptian domination, they absorbed its lessons, adopted its gods, and then perfected its arts of kingship and warfare to forge an empire of their own. How does a civilization emerge from the shadow of a colossus? The Kushites turned their harsh, resource-scarce environment into a crucible of strength. While the Nile gave them life, the surrounding deserts provided a defensive barrier and a wealth of minerals that Egypt itself coveted. They became master archers, so renowned that the Egyptians called their land Toseti, the land of the bow. This martial prowess, honed over generations, would one day be turned against their northern teachers. In a stunning reversal of power, the Kushite king Pi launched a military campaign up the Nile, conquering a divided and weakened Egypt and establishing the 25th dynasty. For nearly a century, the pharaohs of Egypt were Kushite rulers, black kings from Nubia seated on the throne of Horus. They did not destroy the culture they found, but revered it, restoring ancient temples and religious traditions with a pious zeal. Yet, even as they ruled Egypt, their hearts remained in their Nubian homeland. When they were eventually forced to retreat south, they carried their royal ambitions with them, establishing a new capital at Meroe. Here, far from the architectural shadow of Thebes and Memphis, the Kushite spirit truly flourished. In the hot, arid plains of the Sudanese desert, they began to build pyramids. They adapted the Egyptian form but made it distinctly their own, constructing them on a smaller, steeper scale, with flat offering chapels built against their eastern sides. Hundreds of these structures were erected, creating a necropolis in the desert that rivals Egypt in scale, a forest of stone points against the African sky. This was more than imitation, it was a declaration of cultural independence. They developed their own written script, Meroitic, which remains only partially deciphered, locking away the secrets of their court intrigues and merchant contracts. Meroe itself became an industrial powerhouse, its wealth built on vast deposits of iron ore. The city was filled with massive slag heaps, the remnants of furnaces that made Kush one of the primary centers of iron production in the ancient world, arming their warriors with superior weapons and fueling a trade network that reached across the Red Sea. The Kingdom of Kush presents a profound lesson in resilience. They prove that a civilization can learn from a master, surpass it, and then, when pushed back to its origins, find an even more powerful and unique voice, building monuments to its own glory in the most unlikely of places. While the Kingdom of Kush forged an empire from iron and ambition, on the opposite side of the world another desert culture was performing its own miracles of creation. The Machu people ruled the northern coast of Peru for over 700 years, a stretch of barren desert where rain might not fall for a generation. This is a landscape of absolute dryness, where the very idea of a thriving civilization seems like a mirage. Yet here, they built cities centered on colossal adobe pyramids, the largest structures ever erected in the ancient Americas. The Huaca del Sol, or Temple of the Sun, was a gargantuan mountain of over 140 million mud bricks, a testament to a society that commanded the labor of thousands. How do you sustain such a monumental building program and a dense population in a land without water? The Machu answer was one of sheer hydraulic will. They looked beyond their desolate shores to the distant peaks of the Andes. From these mountains, seasonal rivers carved channels through the desert on their journey to the Pacific Ocean. The Machu became master hydraulic engineers, intercepting these rivers with a vast and intricate network of canals. Some of these waterways stretched for dozens of miles, contouring the land with a gentle, precise gradient to maintain a steady flow. They built diversion dams and feeder canals to capture every possible drop of the unreliable flow, channeling life into the heart of the desert. This was not a simple irrigation system. It was a complete replumbing of the landscape, turning vast, sun-baked plains into fertile fields for maize, beans, and squash. This agricultural wealth did more than just feed people. It fueled a society of extraordinary artistic and technological sophistication. Within their ceremonial centers, Machu artisans worked with a skill that still inspires awe. They were the master goldsmiths of the ancient Americas, developing complex techniques like soldering and alloying to create breathtaking funerary masks, intricate nose ornaments, and ceremonial cups. Their pottery is equally remarkable, featuring vessels molded into hyper-realistic portraits of individual people, their faces captured with such unique detail that we can still recognize their features and expressions across the centuries. Other pots depict elaborate scenes of mythology, ritual, and daily life, forming a vivid, wordless library of their beliefs and world. They built without stone, carving their legacy from river mud and the minerals of the earth, proving that a civilization's true wealth is not found in the resources it lacks, but in the transformative power of its collective imagination. What does it take to build a paradise in a place where nature offers only dust? In the rugged highlands of Anatolia, where steep valleys and rocky plateaus define the landscape, the Hittites built an empire of iron and fire. This was not a land of easy abundance. The terrain was better suited for fortresses than for vast fields of grain, yet they turned this geographic challenge into a strategic stronghold. Their capital, Hattusa, was a masterpiece of defensive engineering, perched on a difficult mountainside and protected by monumental walls that snaked across the cliffs. Within this secure heart, they forged the tools of their power, becoming the first civilization to master the large-scale production of iron. How do you dominate an age with a metal that others find brittle and unreliable? The Hittites discovered the secret of carburization, repeatedly heating and hammering the iron in charcoal fires to drive out impurities and create a metal that was stronger, sharper, and more durable than the bronze used by their rivals. This was not merely a technological advance, it was a military revolution. Armed with superior weapons, their army became an unstoppable force. Their true genius, however, lay in their application of this technology to the art of war. They perfected the lightweight, horse-drawn chariot, transforming it into the ancient equivalent of a modern tank. These were not mere carts for transportation, but highly mobile platforms for archers, allowing them to unleash volleys of arrows while moving at speed across the battlefield. This combination of iron weaponry and chariot tactics allowed a kingdom from the mountainous interior to project its power across the Near East, clashing with the great powers of Egypt and Assyria for control of the fertile lands to the south. They were empire builders who looked out from their rocky citadels and saw not isolation but opportunity, proving that the most formidable civilizations are often forged in the most demanding landscapes. The Hittites proved that harsh landscapes forge formidable tools of power, but another culture would use the unforgiving sea itself as their highway to destiny. From the frozen fjords of Scandinavia, the Vikings launched their sleek longships into the teeth of the North Atlantic gales. While history often remembers them as fearsome raiders, their true legacy is one of impossible settlement, of carving farms from the very edge of the Arctic. How do you cultivate a civilization where the growing season is measured in weeks and the ocean is a frozen menace for half the year? Their iconic longships were the key, vessels of breathtaking elegance and brutal efficiency. With their shallow drafts and overlapping clinker-built planks, these ships were as flexible as the sea they conquered. They could beach on any sandy shore, sail up shallow rivers for surprise raids, and most importantly, withstand the monstrous waves of the open ocean. Their mastery of navigation was just as profound. Without compasses, they used sunstones, crystals that could polarize light to locate the sun even on overcast days, and they read the subtle signs of the sea itself, the flight patterns of birds and the color of the water, to find their way to lands beyond all known maps. This was not blind luck, it was a science of observation passed down through generations. They did not just discover Iceland and Greenland, they colonized them, establishing thriving communities in climates that should have repelled all human endeavor. In Iceland, they raised livestock and harvested from the sea, building a parliamentary republic, the Althing, in the stark beauty of a volcanic plain. Their push to Greenland was an even greater gamble. Here, Eric the Red established a settlement that would endure for centuries, with nearly 3,000 people at its peak, farming sheep and cattle in sheltered fjords during the short, intense summer and hunting walrus for their precious ivory during the long, dark winter. These were not temporary outposts but permanent homes, complete with churches, manor houses, and a complex trade network that stretched all the way back to Norway. They had turned the most treacherous ocean on Earth into their personal domain, a liquid road connecting a scattered empire of ice and fire. What does it take to not only survive at the world's edge, but to build a society that calls it home? The story of human ingenuity now carries us to the fertile yet treacherous cradle of Chinese civilization. Along the sprawling Yellow River, a waterway known as both the Mother River and China's Sorrow, the Shang dynasty carved out its legacy. This was China's first historically verified dynasty, a kingdom that mastered the arts of statecraft and metallurgy in a landscape that constantly threatened to wash it all away. The river's annual floods deposited the rich, silty soil that made agriculture possible, but these same floods could just as easily drown entire settlements without warning. How do you build a permanent, centralized state when your very foundation is a liquid, shifting force of nature? The Shang answer was written in ritual bronze and inscribed on oracle bones. They developed one of the world's most sophisticated bronze casting industries, creating not just weapons for a powerful army, but magnificent ritual vessels for communicating with the spirit world. These were not mere pots and cauldrons. They were colossal, intricately decorated tripods and wine goblets, cast using piece mold technology that allowed for stunningly detailed designs of mythical creatures called tauti. The resources and coordinated labor required to mine the ores, fuel the furnaces, and manage the complex casting process speak to a highly stratified and organized society. But their most profound innovation was a system of writing developed to divine the will of the gods and ancestors. Shang kings sought guidance on everything from military campaigns to the harvest, from toothaches to the meaning of dreams. The ritual involved applying heat to animal bones or turtle plastrons until they cracked. Diviners would then interpret the patterns of these cracks, and the question, and sometimes even the outcome, would be inscribed directly onto the bone itself. This is the origin of Chinese script. These oracle bones provide a direct, tangible record of the Shang court's concerns, giving us the names of their kings, their battles, and their fears. They built a civilization balanced on a knife's edge, appeasing the unpredictable river and the capricious heavens through ritual and technological mastery. They proved that order could be forged both in metal and in society, even when the very earth beneath your feet was anything but solid. The open ocean is the most featureless desert on Earth, a void of blue that stretches to the horizon in every direction. Yet the Polynesians saw this not as an emptiness, but as a pathway, a star-guided highway to new worlds. While other cultures hugged coastlines, they launched their double-hulled voyaging canoes into the heart of the Pacific, embarking on the most ambitious program of exploration and colonization in human history. How do you navigate 1 million square miles of trackless water without a single map or compass? Their tools were the natural world itself, read with a precision that feels almost supernatural. They became master wayfinders, memorizing the precise paths of hundreds of stars as they rose and set on the horizon. The sun by day and the star compass by night provided their cardinal directions. But their knowledge went far beyond the heavens. They learned to read the ocean swells, the long, deep waves generated by distant weather systems. By feeling the rhythm of these swells as they reflected off unseen islands, a skilled navigator could sense land far beyond the visible horizon. They watched for specific species of birds, knowing their flight ranges pointed the way to land. They observed the subtle colors of the water and the shapes of clouds, which could hint at a lagoon or a mountainous island dozens of miles away. This was not guesswork, it was a complex living science passed down through chance and apprenticeships. Their vessels, the Great Waka, were feats of engineering designed for these epic journeys. With 2 hulls lashed together, they were stable enough to carry entire families, their livestock, and the plants needed to start a new life, from breadfruit and taro to coconuts and sweet potatoes. They were sailing a vast library of life into the unknown. This incredible knowledge allowed them to find and settle the most remote islands on the planet, from Hawaii to New Zealand to Rapa Nui, a triangle of ocean encompassing 10 million square miles. They did not drift aimlessly, they sailed with intention, pushing against the prevailing winds on their return voyages in a stunning display of seamanship. Each new island they found was a world unto itself, a blank slate where they had to build a society from scratch, adapting to unique climates and resources. The Polynesian expansion was humanity's greatest maritime adventure, a testament to the audacious spirit that looks at an impossible horizon and sees not an end but a beginning. The scent of frankincense was worth more than gold in the ancient world, a fragrance so divine it could bridge the gap between mortals and gods. In the blistering deserts of southern Arabia, a kingdom arose that commanded this priceless treasure. The Sabaeans, the people behind the legendary Queen of Sheba, did not just find wealth in the emptiness of the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter. They manufactured it from thin, dry air. Their mastery was not of conquest but of cultivation, turning one of the most hostile environments on the planet into a perfumed paradise. How do you build a fertile kingdom in a land where rain might not fall for years? The Sabaean answer was carved into the mountains. They became hydrological geniuses, constructing massive dams and complex systems of terraces that captured every fleeting drop of seasonal runoff from the highland rains. Their most famous structure, the Great Dam of Marib, was not a single wall but a sprawling feat of engineering that redirected an entire wadi, a seasonal riverbed, into a network of irrigation canals. This system watered a vast green oasis in the heart of the desert, supporting a thriving agricultural base that grew dates, grains, and fruits, sustaining a population large enough to build a powerful state. This agricultural surplus was the foundation, but their global influence was built on the resin of scraggly, unassuming trees. Frankincense and myrrh could only be harvested from these trees that grew in this specific arid region. The Sabaeans controlled every step of the process, from the careful tapping of the sap to the protection of the caravan routes that carried the precious resin north to Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Mediterranean. These incense trails became the internet of the ancient world, conduits of not just commerce but of ideas and culture. The wealth that flowed into the kingdom of Saba funded the construction of towering, skyscraper-like temples and palaces in their capital, Marib, buildings adorned with intricate alabaster facades and bronze statues. They created a society of merchants and engineers who looked at a map of barren sand and saw a web of lucrative trade routes, proving that true power can lie not in the abundance of resources, but in the monopolistic control of a single, irreplaceable one. Yet while the Sabaeans mastered the desert, another culture was drawing power from a far more volatile earth. In the rolling, mineral-rich hills of central Italy, the Etruscans built a civilization where the ground itself seemed alive. Their land was a dramatic tapestry of soft tufa rock, deep gorges, and steaming volcanic lakes, a region constantly reshaped by the fiery forces beneath the crust. From this unstable but fertile ground, they forged a society of profound sophistication, one that would lay the cultural cornerstone for its eventual conqueror, Rome. How do you build a lasting legacy on land that breathes fire? The Etruscans saw the geothermal activity not as a threat but as a direct channel to the divine. They were a people deeply attuned to the omens of the natural world, believing that the will of the gods was written in the flight of birds, the shape of a lightning bolt, or the steaming fissures in the earth. Their priests, known as haruspices, were experts in hepatoscopy, the art of reading the future in the livers of sacrificed animals. This was not mere superstition, but a complex and systematic state religion, a means of seeking guidance for everything from planting crops to waging war. Their entire worldview was oriented towards interpreting the signs of a world they believed was filled with divine presence, a belief the Romans would eagerly adopt and make their own. This connection to the earth also fueled their material wealth. The Etruscan hills were riddled with rich deposits of copper, tin, and iron. They became master metallurgists, their bronze work celebrated across the Mediterranean, and their iron provided the weapons that made them a dominant power in Italy for centuries. They traded this metal for luxury goods from Greece and the Phoenicians, filling their tombs with exquisite gold jewelry, delicate black Baccaro pottery, and ornate bronze mirrors. Their underground world extended beyond mines to their cities of the dead. They carved vast necropolises from the soft volcanic rock, creating entire subterranean cities with streets, squares, and houses for the deceased. These tombs were painted with vibrant frescoes depicting banquets, dancers, and joyful scenes of daily life, revealing a belief in a celebratory afterlife that stood in stark contrast to the gloomy underworld of the Greeks. It was here, in these elaborate burial chambers, that we find the most intimate portrait of the Etruscans, a people who lived with gusto and faced the unknown with a confident spirit. Their influence seeped into the very foundations of Roman culture, from the gladiatorial games to the tripartite temple architecture and the very symbols of political power like the fasces, the bundle of rods carried by Roman magistrates. The Etruscans present a powerful paradox, a civilization that drew its strength and its identity from a volatile landscape, only to have its own vibrant spirit absorbed and transformed by the rising power it helped to inspire. At an altitude where most people struggle to breathe, the Tiwanaku Empire built a spiritual and agricultural marvel. Their capital city sat on the Bolivian Altiplano, a high plain over 12,000 feet above sea level, nestled near the shores of Lake Titicaca. Here, the air is thin and the nights are freezing, a place that seems to defy the very concept of large-scale farming. Yet the Tiwanaku did not just scrape by, they flourished, supporting a major urban center in a landscape that felt more like another planet. How do you feed a city when the climate is cold enough to kill most crops at night? Their answer was not to fight the environment, but to collaborate with it, creating a revolutionary form of agriculture known as raised field farming. They transformed the flat, waterlogged plains around the lake into a sprawling grid of elevated planting platforms. Each platform was a long, wide mound of soil surrounded by canals of water. This simple-seeming design was a masterpiece of thermal dynamics. During the sun-drenched days, the dark water in the canals would absorb the intense solar heat. Then, throughout the bitterly cold nights, this stored warmth would slowly radiate upward, creating a protective microclimate that enveloped the crops and shielded them from frost. The system was a self-sustaining cycle of life. The canals provided a home for aquatic plants and fish, which could be harvested for food. When these plants decayed, along with nutrient-rich silt dredged from the canal bottoms, they became a natural, abundant fertilizer for the fields above. This method produced staggering crop yields, turning a harsh, unforgiving terrain into a breadbasket capable of sustaining a powerful and sophisticated society. This agricultural genius fueled the growth of their capital, a ceremonial metropolis of monumental stone. They constructed massive gateways from single blocks of andesite, carving intricate depictions of a stern, central deity. They built a pyramid known as the Akapana, a colossal earthen mound terraced with stone and designed with sophisticated drainage systems to channel rainwater. Their architecture was precisely aligned with celestial events, a physical calendar etched into the high plains. The Tiwanaku looked at a world of thin air and frost and saw not limitation, but a blueprint for a civilization in harmony with the sky itself. The mountains of the Caucasus are a fortress of stone, a natural battleground where empires have collided for millennia. In this arena of shifting tectonic plates and even more volatile political alliances, the Kingdom of Armenia carved out a dynasty that endured for over 500 years. Perched on a high plateau crisscrossed by deep gorges and volcanic peaks, their survival depended on a simple, brutal calculus. How do you maintain your identity when you are caught between the superpowers of Rome and Parthia? The Armenian answer was etched into the very rock they stood upon. They built their cities and strongholds not just on the mountains but of them. Their capital, Tigranosota, founded by the ambitious King Tigranes the Great, was a marvel of urban planning and defensive genius, a cosmopolitan hub fortified by the sheer, rugged terrain that surrounded it. But their most enduring architectural feats were the monasteries and churches they later carved into remote, near-vertical cliff faces. These were not just places of worship, they were sanctuaries of culture designed to be virtually inaccessible to invading armies. At sites like Jeghard, entire churches were hewn from solid rock, their interiors cool and echoing, illuminated by light shafts cut from above. The stone itself seemed to breathe with devotion, housing sacred springs and housing countless manuscripts that preserved the Armenian language, history, and faith through centuries of turmoil. This was a civilization that mastered the art of resilience. They endured not only the armies of their neighbors but the very shuddering of the earth beneath them, constantly rebuilding their stone fortresses after devastating earthquakes. Their greatest legacy was this stubborn refusal to be erased. They created a unique alphabet, a beautiful and distinct script that became the bedrock of their national identity, allowing them to record their story in their own words even as foreign influences pressed in from all sides. The Kingdom of Armenia stands as a testament to a different kind of power, one measured not in the breadth of conquest, but in the unyielding depth of cultural roots planted in the most unstable of grounds. But the Kushite ambition was far from spent after their retreat from Egypt. They simply shifted their center of power further south, to a place that would become the engine of their second golden age. Meroe rose from the savannah, a new capital fueled not by conquest but by fire and iron. This was a landscape rich with a different kind of treasure, massive deposits of high-grade iron ore that lay near the surface, ready for the taking. The Kushites did not just mine this resource, they industrialized it on a scale the ancient world had rarely seen. The city became the Pittsburgh of the African continent, a sprawling center of production where the sky was perpetually stained with the smoke of countless furnaces. How do you power an empire without vast farmlands or control of major trade routes? At Meroe, the answer was forged in fire. They developed sophisticated smelting techniques, building tall, chimney-like furnaces that could reach the intense temperatures needed to separate pure iron from the raw ore. The sheer volume was staggering, and the remnants of their industry still litter the site today in great mountains of slag, the waste material left over from the smelting process. These blackened hills are the silent testament to centuries of relentless production. This command of iron technology gave them a tremendous advantage. It armed their warriors with superior weapons, stronger and sharper than the bronze used by many of their neighbors. It provided them with superior tools for farming and building. And it became a lucrative export traded across the Red Sea and into the interior of Africa. The wealth generated by this industrial powerhouse funded the construction of a magnificent royal city, complete with its own distinct style of steep-sided pyramids and a written language Meroitic that still guards its secrets. The Kingdom of Kush at Meroe presents a powerful lesson in reinvention. When one source of power faded, they discovered another, transforming a sun-baked savanna into the fiery heart of an industrial revolution, proving that a civilization's greatest resource is its own relentless capacity for innovation. Out in the shimmering heat of the Persian Gulf, a single island offered the one thing every sailor craved: fresh water. This was Dilmun, a name whispered in Sumerian epic poems as a pure and sacred land, a place where the sun itself rose. In reality, it was a brilliant commercial enterprise, an oasis civilization built not on vast territories, but on strategic location and a single, precious resource. While the surrounding sea and coast were a salt-crusted desert, the island of Bahrain bubbled with natural artesian springs, creating lush pockets of green in an otherwise barren maritime world. How does a small island become the central hub for the trade of two continental superpowers? Dilmun positioned itself as the indispensable middleman. Its sleek ships, depicted on Mesopotamian seals, plied the waters between the Indus Valley and the city-states of Sumer. They carried the heavy copper of Oman, the rare hardwoods of India, and the polished carnelian beads of the Harappans north to Mesopotamia. On the return journey, they brought back wool, leather, and silver, but their most critical role was providing fresh water and supplies to every vessel that crossed the Gulf. They turned their greatest natural advantage into an economic empire. This was not just trade, it was a complete logistical operation. The island itself became a giant warehouse and a neutral ground where merchants from distant cultures could meet, barter, and rest before the next perilous leg of their journey. The wealth this generated was immense, funding the creation of a unique society. They buried their elite in vast mound fields, thousands of earthen tumuli that still dot the landscape, some featuring elaborate chamber tombs built with finely cut stone. At the heart of their world was a monumental temple complex with a sacred well that tapped directly into the freshwater aquifers, a spiritual celebration of the very resource that gave them life. Dillman proved that you do not need to control vast lands to wield immense influence. Sometimes all the power in the world flows from a single clear spring in a salty sea. Long before the Incas shaped their mountains or the Machu carved their canals, a different kind of miracle was taking root on the Peruvian coast. The Norte Chico civilization built a world of monuments in a landscape of breathtaking extremes. Their home was a narrow strip of river valleys, each a fragile green ribbon of life separated by vast, barren deserts so dry they rank among the most arid places on Earth. Rain was a near mythical event here, a fleeting possibility that might not occur for generations. Yet in this world of dust and rock, they raised more than 30 major ceremonial centers, constructing massive platform mounds and sunken circular plazas that transformed the desert floor. How does a society achieve such architectural grandeur without two of the hallmarks of ancient complexity? The Norte Chico present a fascinating paradox, a sophisticated culture that flourished for centuries without producing pottery or creating widespread visual art. Their genius was not expressed in painted vases or carved statues, but in the sheer scale of their communal projects and the social organization required to build them. At sites like Cairo, the oldest known city in the Americas, they erected a central pyramid that stood over 90 feet tall, a colossal structure made of stone, earth, and endless baskets of rocks hauled from riverbeds. This was not the work of a simple village, but of a coordinated society with a clear vision and the ability to mobilize labor on a grand scale. So what fueled this early florescence of civilization? Their wealth was rooted in the unique bounty of their environment. They mastered a dual economy, farming the fertile river valleys for crops like cotton, squash, and beans, while simultaneously drawing immense riches from the Pacific Ocean. The cold, nutrient-rich Humboldt Current just offshore created one of the world's most productive fisheries, providing a constant, reliable source of food. They harvested vast quantities of anchovies and sardines, drying them for storage and trade. It was this maritime wealth, this abundance of protein from the sea, that likely freed the labor force to undertake their monumental building projects. They wove the cotton they grew into the nets that caught the fish that fed the workers who built the pyramids, a perfect, self-sustaining economic loop. They created a complex society not through artistic expression, but through the architecture of community itself, proving that civilization can blossom in the most unlikely soil, following a blueprint entirely its own. Deep beneath the blistering sands of the Libyan desert, an empire was built on water that had fallen as rain thousands of years earlier. The Garamontes were masters of a hidden landscape, a people who turned the deepest, most ancient aquifers into the lifeblood of their cities. While others saw only an impassable sea of dunes, they saw a map of buried rivers, and they devised an ingenious way to bring that water to the surface. Their solution was the Fagara, a sprawling network of underground tunnels that functioned like a subterranean highway for water. These were not simple wells. Teams of workers would dig a main vertical shaft down to the water table, sometimes reaching depths of over 100 feet. From the bottom of this shaft, they would then dig a gently sloping tunnel, sometimes for miles, back towards their fields and settlements. The genius was in the gradient. By carving the tunnel with a slight, consistent decline, they allowed gravity to do all the work, coaxing the fossil water from its deep reservoir and guiding it to the open air where it could nourish their crops. Maintaining these tunnels was a constant, dangerous battle against collapsing sand, a testament to a society built on shared labor and hydrological expertise. This engineered river flowing beneath the sand transformed the heart of the Sahara into a green oasis. It supported a kingdom of fortified towns with stone castles and complex irrigation systems cultivating grapes, figs, and wheat in the midst of the world's most formidable desert. The Garamontes became a formidable power, their chariots patrolling trade routes that connected the Mediterranean coast to sub-Saharan Africa. They did not just find an oasis, they built one from the bones of a prehistoric world, creating a civilization that stood as a shimmering mirage made real, a testament to the power of reaching deep into the earth to draw life from a forgotten sky. Where mighty rivers meet the sea, a different kind of power emerges. In the vast, waterlogged world of the Mekong Delta, the Funan Kingdom built an empire not of stone fortresses but of liquid highways. This was a civilization born from the mud, a maritime network that turned a sprawling, swampy maze into the central trading hub for half the world. How do you rule a landscape that is more water than land? The Funan answer was to become one with the flow. They did not drain their wetlands, they engineered them, carving an extensive network of canals that connected their port cities and transformed the delta into a single, cohesive economic zone. These were not simple ditches. Some canals stretched for dozens of miles, wide enough for large seafaring vessels to travel deep inland, linking the South China Sea directly to the heart of their agricultural and urban centers. Their capital, Ak-Eo, was a bustling cosmopolitan port, a Venice of Southeast Asia built on stilts and crisscrossed by these man-made waterways. Archaeologists have found remnants of Roman coins, Persian jewelry, and seals from India amidst its foundations, proof of its incredible reach. This was the pivot point, the indispensable link in the trade route between the empires of India and the Han Dynasty in China. Merchants from the West would arrive with cotton textiles, glassware, and exotic religious ideas, while Chinese ships brought silks, ceramics, and metalwork. In the markets of Funan, these goods were exchanged, with the kingdom's rulers levying taxes and controlling the flow of commerce, amassing immense wealth. Their power was not projected through towering pyramids, but through this mastery of logistics and geography. They looked at an impenetrable, shifting delta and saw a perfect, defensible crossroads, proving that the most fluid landscapes can sometimes forge the most resilient and connected empires. While the Funan Kingdom mastered the river deltas of Southeast Asia, another power was rising to dominate the sea lanes that connected the world. The Srivijaya Empire built its throne upon the waves, a thalassocracy whose power was measured not in acres of farmland, but in control of the most valuable choke point in maritime history, the Strait of Malacca. This narrow passage between Sumatra and the Malay Peninsula was the absolute bottleneck for trade between China and India. Every ship carrying Chinese silks to the west or Indian spices and textiles to the east had to navigate this treacherous, pirate-infested waterway. The Srivijayan kings understood that whoever commanded the strait held the keys to a global economy. They did not conquer the jungle-covered islands of the Indonesian archipelago so much as they conquered the spaces between them. How do you rule an empire when your territory is primarily composed of water? Their capital, Palembang, was not a fortress city of stone walls, but a sprawling river port, a floating metropolis of docks, warehouses, and stilt houses built where the Musi River met the sea. From this aquatic heart, their fleets of swift outrigger canoes patrolled the surrounding seas, enforcing their will. They offered protection to merchant vessels from the monsoons and from pirates, and in return, they demanded taxes and tribute, amassing legendary wealth that filled their coffers with gold and exotic goods. This was a commercial empire built on a simple, powerful principle: safe passage for a price. Their influence stretched across thousands of miles of ocean, a network of loyal ports and vassal chiefs that formed a virtual empire without fixed borders. The Srivijayan court became a brilliant center of Buddhist learning, attracting scholars and pilgrims from across Asia, its spiritual authority reinforcing its commercial dominance. They left behind no great pyramids or towering temples of stone, for their true monument was the map of the trade routes they controlled for centuries. The Srivijaya Empire proves that the most formidable kingdoms can be invisible, their power written not in stone on the land, but in the currents of the sea and the flow of commerce they so deftly commanded. For centuries, the name Yam existed only as a whisper in the tombs of ancient Egypt, a land of mystery recorded in the biography of a lone explorer. Harkhaf, a governor of the southern frontier, led 4 great expeditions into the parched emptiness we now call the Libyan desert, returning with a treasure beyond gold, a dancing pygmy for the pleasure of the boy pharaoh Pepi II. His inscriptions tell of a journey of 7 months, a trek so perilous it crossed a desert desolate of water and life. This was not a voyage to a neighboring state, but a monumental undertaking to reach a civilization that thrived in a place the Egyptians themselves considered the end of the world. How could a kingdom exist in such profound isolation, separated from the Nile by an ocean of sand so vast it seemed to swallow all hope of contact? The mystery of Yam is a puzzle of geography and endurance. It was not a land of flowing rivers but of hidden waters. The key to its survival lay deep beneath the dunes, in the same fossil aquifers that the Garamontes would later tap. The people of Yam likely congregated around oases fed by these ancient underground reserves, islands of green in a tan sea of nothingness. Their existence was a testament to a deep, localized knowledge of the desert's secret geography, knowing exactly where to find the life-giving pockets that made settlement possible. Their value to Egypt was not in territory but in trade. Harkhaf's caravans returned with incense, ebony, panther skins, and ivory, goods that point to a connection with the African interior. Yam was not the final destination, but the crucial middleman, the only stable power in a wasteland that could control the flow of exotic wealth from the heart of Africa to the courts of the pharaohs. The journey itself was the greatest testament to their achievement. To travel for months through the Sahara required more than just courage. It demanded a sophisticated understanding of desert logistics. They would have had to pre-position water and supplies along the route, cooperating with local tribes and navigating by the stars across a landscape with no landmarks. This was not a random exploration, it was a scheduled, repeatable commercial operation. The Kingdom of Yam forces us to reconsider the very meaning of isolation. It was a civilization that drew its strength from its remoteness, turning an impenetrable barrier into a protective moat and a commercial monopoly. They built a kingdom not on a river or a coast, but on the very emptiness that surrounded them, proving that connection can be forged across any distance, so long as there is a will and a path to reach it. 2,000 miles from the nearest shore, a solitary volcano rises from the empty expanse of the Pacific. Easter Island is one of the most isolated places ever settled by humans, a tiny speck of land where the Rapa Nui people performed one of history's most staggering acts of creation. They arrived at this remote island after an epic sea voyage, finding a world with limited timber, no large animals, and precious few resources. Yet from this stark environment, they carved and raised the moai, nearly 900 colossal stone figures that stand as eternal sentinels. How does a small population, completely cut off from the rest of the world, move statues weighing up to 80 tons across miles of rugged terrain? The answer is a testament to human ingenuity and sheer will. They likely carved the moai directly from the volcanic rock of the Rano Raraku quarry, and then transported them in a standing position, rocking them back and forth in a walking motion along prepared roads. This would have been a slow, rhythmic, communal effort, a coordinated dance that inched the giants across the island. Once at their ceremonial platforms, the Ahu, the most daring phase, began. Using a complex system of ropes and ramps made from earth and stone, they raised the multi-ton monuments upright, topping them with heavy red stone cylinders called pukao. Each moai was not merely a statue, but a sacred representation of a deified ancestor, believed to hold supernatural power or mana and to watch over the community. They created a complex society with a unique script Rongo Rongo that no one has yet fully deciphered, but their story also carries a profound warning. The very act of creating their civilization, the intensive logging to transport the moe, may have led to environmental collapse, stripping the island of its protective forests and triggering a societal crisis. The Rapa Nui did not just defy their geography, they pushed against its absolute limits, building a world of stone giants in total isolation, a breathtaking achievement that stands as a powerful lesson in both human potential and the fragile balance of any ecosystem. Our final civilization turned its rocky, fragmented home into an engine of ideas. The ancient Greeks inhabited a land that seemed to defy unity, a jagged peninsula of thin soil, earthquake-shattered terrain, and isolated valleys walled in by mountains. Where others might have seen only hardship, they saw 1,000 launching points to the sea. Their greatest resource was not the land but the horizon. With limited fertile ground to support a growing population, they did not turn inward, they cast their gaze outward, launching a wave of colonization that dotted the coasts of the Mediterranean and the Black Sea with new Greek cities. From the shores of Spain to the Crimea, from North Africa to the French Riviera, these colonies became independent city-states, yet they remained bound by a shared language, gods, and a growing sense of Hellenic identity. How does a civilization spread its culture so effectively without a centralized empire? The sea was their highway, and the trireme, their swift, oared warship, was the vehicle of their influence. This maritime network became a conduit for trade in olive oil, wine, and silver, but more importantly for the exchange of knowledge. The Greeks were voracious learners, absorbing mathematics from Egypt, the alphabet from Phoenicia, and metalworking from the Near East. But they did not simply copy, they questioned, analyzed, and transformed everything they encountered. In the competitive, often fractious atmosphere of the independent city-state, new ways of thinking flourished. In the agoras of Athens and the groves of its academies, citizens debated the nature of justice, the structure of the cosmos, and the rights of the individual. They invented philosophy, drama, and history as formal disciplines, laying the intellectual foundation for the Western world. Their most enduring architectural marvels, the Parthenon and other temples, were not just places of worship but expressions of a human-centered worldview, built with such refined optical corrections that their straight lines appear perfectly curved to the human eye, a testament to their belief that reason and beauty were inseparable. The story of the Greeks proves that geography is not destiny. A challenging landscape of scattered islands and besieged valleys, far from stifling their spirit, forced them to look beyond their shores, transforming the entire Mediterranean into a classroom and a stage. They demonstrated that the most formidable barriers can become the very catalysts for a culture's greatest achievements, pushing humanity to reach not for solid ground but for the stars. From the high Andes to the deep Sahara, across trackless oceans and within the densest jungles, these 30 stories reveal a single, breathtaking truth. Humanity's greatest talent is not merely for survival but for transformation. We have consistently looked upon landscapes of sheer impossibility and seen not an end but a beginning. The common thread weaving through the tales of the Inca, the Nabateans, the Polynesians, and all the rest is a profound resilience, a stubborn refusal to accept the limits of their world. They did not conquer their geography through brute force, but through a deep and patient conversation with it. They learned the secret language of the desert winds, the mountain stones, and the ocean swells, and they answered with terraces, with hidden water channels, with starlit canoes, and with cities carved from living rock. They turned scarcity into abundance and isolation into connection, proving that the most formidable barrier is often just the raw material for our next great leap. Each of these civilizations, in its own unique way, stands as a monument to the audacious spirit that lives within us all. We want to hear which of these journeys of defiance resonated most deeply with you. Was it the cliff-dwelling ancestral Pueblones, the maritime empire of the Srivijaya, or the industrial fire of Kush at Marave? Share in the comments the one story that made you see the ancient map in a completely new light.